Okay, here we are. Okay, so thank you for all that are keeping following us. So we are lesson 224 from Guinea Conakry. As we used to do today, we have one of the greatest quote from John Maxwell leadership, and her name is Umu Obilo. Is it the right way to pronounce it?
Omu Obilo, but that's fine.
Omu. Okay, Omu Obilo from Nigeria, and today she'll be talking about living your best life. We all know that life is full of obstacles and challenges, So to face them, you just have to feed your mind with positiveness, with motivation. So if we say that we only focus on those obstacles, I think it won't be easy for us to live our best life. So today, she'll just give a detail about that topic. So Umo Obilo, thank you so much. Thank you for all the respect and consideration to agree our request to invite you to be in our page today. So you have the
Thank
floor.
you.
Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for having
Okay.
me. Hello,
Okay.
Conakry. Conakry is the capital of
Yes.
Guinea, right?
Yes,
And
of course. Yes,
I
yes,
figure
yes.
that's where majority of your followers are from. I
Yes,
figured
yes, yes. Most of
majority
them
of your
are.
awesome. So hello, how do they say hello in Conakry? Or good afternoon? How do they say it in Conakry?
We said that bonsoir or bon après-midi. You can say bon
Okay, you speak
après-midi.
French. Bon après-midi. Bon après-midi.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So should I go
Okay.
ahead?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Omu
Yes.
Obilo, like my friend here has introduced me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a speaker, coach, and a trainer. I work with people to overcome limiting beliefs, to overcome procrastination, fear of failure, fear of
Great.
success, hesitation, imposter syndrome, and the likes. But ultimately, to help them go further faster towards achieving living their best life. And living your best life, it varies from one person to the other. What success means to me does not necessarily mean that's what success means to the other. So I help you achieve success in different areas of your life, whatever success means to you. There's that saying that we're made up of the five people that are closest to us. And for the longest time, I used to pride myself with saying that, oh, no one can influence me. Instead, I would influence the other person. As I
Wow.
got older, I realized that the influence does not necessarily mean that you're going to be like the person. But when people are around you, at some point you're going to start rationalizing in their thinking, in your thinking to kind of fit theirs, or you're going to start seeing certain things their way, or you pick up words from them or thinking, but there's no way in a relationship you're not affected just the same way you're affecting the person, the other person is affecting you. Now, there are different techniques that I use in this process. The first one is, which I find very common with a lot of us, is the ability to say no. And I always say to people that no is a full sentence. No, full stop. It's a full sentence. A lot of us don't know how to say no. So people come to us and we take on responsibilities, commitments, all because we don't want to say no. And at the end of the day, our life is filled with things that we ordinarily do not want to do. And then the next question would be, how do I say no to someone? Or I didn't know how to say no. It's important to develop the attitude where instead of saying a yes or a no, just nicely say, okay, I'll think about it. let me think about it. You haven't said no. You also haven't said yes, committing yourself. And that gives you enough time to process your thoughts and actually see if it's something that you can do or if it's something you want to do. Otherwise, you get all these things into your head, and ultimately, you seem happy in the scheme of things, but you're not happy. Now, towards living your best life, I want us to just take a few seconds and think, imagine, close your eyes, and just imagine that your life is a room, and that room has just one door. And that door, you only go in, you can't come out. That is our life, and that is our brain. So from the moment we wake up till the moment we go back to bed, everything we hear, we see, we touch is registered in our brain. Even if you saw it 20 years ago, even if you heard it 20 years ago, you might think you have forgotten. It is somewhere in your brain. That is why sometimes things happen and you say, oh, this looks, some people call it a deja vu. Things happen and you say, oh, this thing looks familiar or it sounds familiar. You might not be able to place it. You've heard it. It's registered in your brain. When you see it again, it goes and it picks it up from there. Sometimes you see someone you haven't seen in a long time. You just hear the voice and the voice sounds familiar. You might not remember the person's name. You might not remember the person's face, but the person's voice just sounds familiar. Same thing with the looks. You can see the person sounds familiar, but you can't place it. So everything we see, touch, hear is registered in our brain. So same thing with different characters of people. You have negative people, you have people that don't sync with you, and they're all registered in your head. So it is a room full of confusion. And like I said, once it goes in there, it is never coming out. So just imagine your life filled with the negative people you've met, filled with the positive people you've met, filled with people you've met that were positive and maybe out of life. Maybe you moved to another country or maybe you changed professions, you just lost touch with them. They're still there in your brain. So you need to rearrange and realign and decide the things that are important to you. Now, in this room, you have shelves, you have, people would ask me, okay, so if I realize that this person that is, let's say, uppermost in my mind or in my life every day has a negative impact on my life, what do I do? I said, look, I look for the darkest corner of the room or darkest corner of my life and I put the person there where the person does not affect my day-to-day life. So you're able to compartmentalize and you're able to manage the people and the things in your life every day. This also applies to your work. When you work in places or you're working with things that don't properly align with you or they don't align with your values, there's a disconnect. So you can never totally be happy and you can never totally live your best life. And then you might ask, how do I really determine? And this is where the main job is. You first of all start by identifying what your values are. A lot of us would say, oh, I know my core values. But how many people have actually taken time out to write down what their core values are? So if I ask you what are your values, you might be able to name maybe one or two because you think they're your values. But you need to do a test to know whether those values are your values that you currently live or whether they are aspirational values. So I did this training with a client and she said that one of her values was punctuality and keeping to time. And in all the time that I had known her, she had never kept to an appointment.
Wow.
So I said to her, I said, this cannot be your value. It can be an aspirational value, which means that is a value you aspire to acquire. In that case, when it's an aspirational value, which is why it's important to write it down. So when you write down these values and you ask yourself certain questions, you find out that you might not be living those values. And once you're not living those values, you cannot honestly call them your true values. What they are aspirational values. When they are aspirational values, you now want to ask yourself, how do I turn these aspirational values to my core values? And then you try to take the step. So, for instance, with the client who doesn't keep to time, when she realized, we used different techniques, set an alarm. Like for this event, I'd set an alarm to remind me a day before, 2 hours before, 1 hour before, 30 minutes before. So I know that I know what I'm doing and I'm constantly on time. If you know you're going somewhere and there are chances there will be traffic, you factor in the traffic and you leave earlier. It's better to get there earlier than to get there late. If keeping to time really is a core value to you. You can't tell me that integrity is a core value to you and you give an appointment and you don't keep it, or you're given a job and you do it halfway and you stop it, or nobody can go to the bank with your word. Integrity can be your core value. It could be an aspirational value, and then you start to work towards achieving it as your core value. Now, when you're able to determine what your values are, then you're also able to recognize the values that people hold and know whether their values align with your values. If your value is integrity, you cannot collaborate with someone whose value is not integrity. It would never work. It would never work. So going back to the room example, now, which is your mind, you know, like when you go to nice clubs or when you go to restaurants, you have the doormen. You have the doormen who open the door for you and all that. Remember that in some restaurants, when you come with short knicker, they might say to you, you're not allowed in with short knicker, because that is the value, and that's where they've placed their restaurant, and they've given that instruction to their doorman. So same thing with, I'll use myself as an example. I have zero tolerance for negativity. So I don't let people, there's some people who, when you bring up a topic, the only thing they see is the bad side. They never see the good side.
Yes.
If you bring up a business, instead of telling you why it would work, they tell you why it will not work.
Yeah.
I don't want people like that around me. So I have trained my doorman to recognize people like that from a distance. So I don't let you into my life, because I don't want to hear it will not work. I don't want to hear those negative things. I don't want to let it into my brain. Otherwise, it would affect my own way of thinking as well.
Yes, sure.
And I want to live my best life. I want to wake up happy and go to bed happy. So I don't want to hear any negative talk. So my doorman recognizes you from a distance and he blocks you. So you need, it's not a day's job, but it's something that you need to train and retrain your brain and yourself to it. Now, this is a training I've given severally. So there's some questions that come up that I also use. So I've heard people say, but they say don't judge a book by its cover. And that's true. There's some people you might meet and for some reason they might sound like they don't align with your values. And guess what I say to them? You know how you go to some houses and they have like waiting rooms or they have like balconies before you get into the house. So there's some people that I meet or some transactions I want to do or some things I want to do, and I put it there for some time. I don't let you into my life. I put it there for some time to kind of understand if I'm not sure, until I'm sure, until I have clarity. Then I know whether I want to proceed or whether I want to retreat. But I'm not going to leave an open door policy. For the longest time, our lives are like, those doors that you just open and you just swing open and you enter. So people just swing open and
Yes.
just letting anybody, everybody, every business, any business into our lives. There's some people that you do work with, and by the time you finish talking to them, you're tired, you're angry, and then it affects every other thing that you're going to do for the rest of the day. I don't want people like that in my
Yes.
life. And I'm not going to live my best life, you know, doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a short training, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
leave us with a lesson. And if anybody wants to discuss it, the person is free to get in touch with me. And that is, write down what your core values are and ask yourself
Mm-hmm.
questions. Am I living this value? If I'm living this value, am I doing what it is that that value is about? Am I practicing it? And if you're not practicing it, then you work out steps towards practicing it. And that's the only way that you can start to live your best life.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. So, wonderful. It was clearly explained and I understand it. And I have few questions again about that. Even if you are someone that is really positive every day, most of the time you're positive, but there may be sometimes again you may be negative. I don't know if that happened.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yes,
Everyone has negative thoughts which is
yes.
why you need to feed your brain with positive
Mm-hmm.
thoughts,
So,
and you have to practice things that would
mm-hmm.
help your brain always go back, reset to positivity. The negative thoughts would always come in.
Okay. Okay. So if
So
that time will arrive, you just try to feed your mind through the positiveness, right? To feed
absolutely.
your mind back.
So
Okay.
sometimes you might be, for instance, with your show now, you might say, "Oh, who
Mm-hmm.
is going to listen to my show?"
Mm-hmm.
Or nobody's going to listen to my show. And then you say, "Why shouldn't people listen to my show? What are the good things about my show? I'm showing this, I'm teaching people this, I'm teaching people this, I'm teaching people this." And then you feed yourself and dwell on that, as against dwelling on the negative aspects, because what you feed grows. So if you feed the negative thoughts, it would grow. If you feed the positive thoughts, it would grow.
Okay. Okay. And again, sometimes again, we don't have a choice by being surrounded by negative people. It may be whether in our own family, because sometimes
Absolutely. So
we
yes,
yes,
I'm happy you asked that question, right?
yes, yes,
So there's something called taking people in small doses, right? It could actually be your
yes,
blood brother or blood sister or your mom that is
yes,
negative,
even
right?
yes,
I've had people
yes.
who their own blood would say to them, "This business you're doing can't work."
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a negative sibling or a negative or someone
Mm-hmm.
who is negative that you really cannot shut out of your life completely,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are different ways
Yes.
of dealing with them, because I can never say, "Oh, because your mom is negative, stop talking to her." That's impossible,
Impossible,
right?
really.
It's impossible.
Really.
So how do you deal with this? So let's assume I'm going to meet somebody called, let's, for the reason of this program, call the person, I'm trying to think of a name that I hope okay, let's call the person Adam, right?
Adam, okay. Yes.
Let's say Adam is a very negative man and he's my
Mm-hmm.
uncle and a close uncle,
Mm-hmm.
so I cannot do without seeing Adam. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to see Adam, so I program my mind. There's some people that when I'm going to see, I know they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say anything that I like, but I know I
Okay.
have to see them. So I will prepare my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Okay.
So there's some people that are talking to me, I'm
Uh-huh.
listening, but it's not registering. If when I leave that place, if you ask me what they said, I don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to be rude to you. I am
Mhm.
not going to disrespect you, but I simply would not
Mhm.
I would not give you space. I will not accommodate you in my brain.
Okay.
So you prepare yourself for people like that.
Before meeting them.
Yes,
Before
before
meeting them.
meeting with
Okay.
them. Yes. Mm.
Okay. Okay. And again, there are times that comes again. We may face from fail to fail, from failure to failure. You see. So during that time, if in case that we are not surrounding again by people, positive people, we may you may plan something. You may expect that the result of that thing will be good, and that one, the result will be failure. You will go from failure to failure. So during that time again, because that time is a really short time, if that time there are not many people that can support or that can deal with such kind of period. So in case that we are in that situation, such kind of situation, so how do we manage that again?
You know,
I
what
mean,
people call
mhm, mhm,
failure, or the
mhm,
way people see failure
mhm,
is actually it's the way that you see it, because I see what people call as failure as a learning process.
mhm,
I didn't fail. I only learned. I learned
okay,
one more way not to do it, and I won't go that way again. But people see failure as the end of the world. Sometimes failure is a positive thing. Sometimes failure is actually the way to find the way to do it right.
mhm.
So I'll give you an instance. I started my podcast and
Yes.
I stopped because somebody passed a comment, and I dealt with that limiting belief. I mean, it's affected me, but I had to
Mhm,
deal with it. I dealt with it. I reprogrammed my
mhm,
brain, and then I started again. Now, if I had seen it as failure, I would have put the podcast aside, and then it would be, oh, I used to have a podcast and I failed. What I did was I worked on my brain, I re-strategized, and I came out. Now, nobody, no matter what anyone says, I have trained my brain enough to be clear on what I'm doing, and I'm sure of what I'm
mhm.
doing. So someone's comment is not going to affect me the way it did at the time. If I had let that
Okay.
comment affect me in such a way that I stopped doing it, then I have seen it as failure. You won't bounce back.
Okay. And again, you said that about the second time about recognizing our true value. That time again may be really, really difficult for some people. So, do we really need other people again about recognizing our true value? Do we need people during that
Yes,
time?
so I have,
Because
I
that
have. What do you mean by do you need people? Do you need people around you? Or is it that do you need
around
someone to
you.
help you? Oh, yeah.
Okay,
No,
yes,
man, you can't,
it may
would
be
you
a.
be alone? You can't be alone. You can't be a loner now. You can't be a
Okay,
loner.
that time, that during that time again, because if I take myself personally, it was really difficult for me to get my true values. I was in confused about knowing that unless I just started to attend some classes, some courses, to be around some people. You see, those people, they just say that really you are so skillful in that skills. You are so skillful in by doing this or by doing that. You know, but once I was alone, it was really it was not easy for me to get to know that my true value. That was the reason that I asked you that question. So if
Absolutely. And for some people, that is why I said for some people, when you ask them, they can just reel it out. For some people, they have to
mhm,
dig deeper. For me, I had to dig deeper,
mhm,
and I'm still working on it. I'm constantly evaluating and
mhm,
reevaluating. For some people, it's
mhm,
easier. There's no hard and fast rule. For some people, they actually
yes,
get a coach to help them identify those values because
yes,
there's certain questions we'll ask you. So it varies
mhm,
from one person to another.
mhm. Okay, okay, and again, the last one, it is about saying no. That one again, not easy at all. You see, so
Look, I used to think
this,
so, but it is very, very easy. And
really,
a lot of times when people ask you for those things that you say no about, they
uh,
actually do know that no should be the right answer. But because they've seen you're a yes person, they take it for granted.
mhm,
So
okay,
like I said, if you're
uh-huh,
uncomfortable about saying no, say I'll
mhm,
think about it. And then when you think about it, now
mhm,
remember that first, you don't want to saddle yourself with so much that you're not living your best life. Two, you don't
mhm,
want to be doing things you don't want to do simply because you don't know how to say no to the person.
mhm,
And then at the end of the day, you're overwhelmed.
mhm,
So when you say, let me think about it, what it does is it gives you time to go and set yourself inwards. Is it something I can do? Is this something I want to do? Is this something that aligns with my values? Right? And
yes,
then you would you would find a nicer way to say, at this time
uh-huh,
I'm busy,
mhm,
or at this time I can't do it, or to be quite honest with you, this thing does not align with my values. And it's with no disrespect, with no hard feelings.
there are some people again, they will just feel that if I say no to those people, I will be out from the society. You know,
So that is
the
fear. Now that is a fear that you need to deal with. Because if I'm saying no to you and
mhm,
you're going to take it that personal, that you're going to probably stop talking to me and all that, then it means you were not meant to be in my life in the first place. Because if you respect
mhm,
me and
okay,
respect what I stand for, and I say, I'm sorry, I can't do this at this time, I expect you to understand. And if you don't, then it means you're not respectful of my own um, commitments or my values or myself.
commitment. Okay,
So
okay,
if I said to you, I want to come back on your show next week,
mhm,
and I feel that okay, because me and you have come to your show, me and you have a relationship, you must agree, and you've committed yourself to someone else, but you don't know how to say no to me because maybe you really like me and maybe you want to still have me in your circles or something like that. And then you say to me, let me think about it. Then you go, you look at your diary. You also don't want to disappoint that person. And you come back to me and say, I already booked Mr. ABC and I can't move the diary. Do you mind coming in January? And then I stop talking to you or I block you on social media. That means you should actually
mhm.
not have anything to do with me because even if you do, going forward, we'll still have a problem.
Yes, 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 sure, yes. Okay, and again, what do you have personally for those that are just, what do you have as it may be advice for those that are following us, or those that will come to just watch our video? So,
Okay, my
what?
my my advice based on this
Mm-hmm,
topic would be please,
mm-hmm,
please, please identify what your core values and what your aspirational values are.
the main
And
point, yes.
make sure you write it. It is not about having it in your head. What you write,
Mm-hmm,
you invite. When you write something, you invite it. So just don't put it in your head. Write it down. Have a journal. Another
Wow.
way of, and then another way of dealing with the question you asked about when negativity comes to your mind and things like that. One of the best
Mm-hmm.
ways that I have found is by
Uh-huh.
keeping a gratitude journal and having a mind of gratitude. Now, be
Wow.
at the end of each day, you write out
Mm-hmm.
everything you're grateful for. In fact, anyone listening to this, after listening,
Mm-hmm.
write down 100
Mm-hmm.
things that you are grateful for. No matter what it
Wow.
is, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I can speak. I'm grateful that I can eat. I'm grateful that I have clothes on my back. I'm grateful that my parents
Wow.
are still alive. I'm grateful that I have a child.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Write 100 and let me know how you felt after you wrote that 100.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Really, for sure, this show was really, really fruitful. And thank you so much. And again,
Thank you
we
for
are
having
just
me.
yes, we are just planning about it because we don't have our headquarters yet. Once we get it, we'd like to invite all those people that we invite from our page to come from time to time to give some classes, not only virtually but in presence, to come in here and deliver those courses because they
I
are really
can't I can't
interesting.
wait to visit. I can't wait to visit Conakry. I'll put it in my next
Wow!
year's. I'll put it in my
Yes, yes,
2023 list.
yes. Before the end of 2023, for sure, by God grace, we'll just invite you to come here in our local just to deliver those classes. So, and again, just consider that you are one of our partners again because we may be working together in the future by the grace of God. So, thank
No
you so
worries.
much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for all your time, for all the
Thank you.
consideration toward
Not at
us.
all. Thank you. Thank you.
So I wish you a wonderful weekend to you and all your
And you
family.
too. And you too. Thank you.
So bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.